Hello and welcome. My name is Monica Brand, and I'm going to be talking to you about Saturn in the year 2023. This year, 2023, we're going to have a big uh, Saturn transit because Saturn is going to be changing signs. Right now, Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius and is going to transition to the sign of Pisces in the month of March. So we want to look into that and we want to see what that means for the collective. And then we want to talk about how that affects us in our own personal charts. Depending on where our sun is, we can see if that Saturn transit is going to um, affect us, like help us, or is going to test us. Okay, so we're going to see all of that. And that's what I want to talk about in this audio. So let's start with the planet and what it means. So Saturn is the planet of mastery. Okay, so when you think about Saturn, you can think about the principal of the school who basically is there to regulate, right? To impose the rules, to make sure everybody is dressed by the code, that you get there on time, that everybody's respecting the schedule, that you bring the papers, that you're behaving, that you're following the rules of the institution. So the Saturn is the planet that helps us stay within the structures, that imposes a certain control or contraction, limitations, so we keep functioning within the structures that have been placed, right? And but what Saturn does is that makes us work or get serious, get realistic about a certain situation. So we do the work, we bring the homework, we, you know, write the papers, we get ready, we get prepared, and by the end of the transit of a Saturn transit, we gain mastery, right? So wherever Saturn is transiting, whether it is transiting, any sign in any specific house in your chart, that is a place in your life where you are getting sort of a degree, a master's degree, where you're supposed to get a certain um, specialty, right? You are working in order to get better at something, but it does require your work, it does require your commitment. uh it gives you a lot of reality checks. It's not a place to be dreaming and just like fantasizing about things. It is a place where you're supposed to get real, and um you're supposed to learn resilience and commitment and practicality and all of these things. Saturn is the planet of maturity. So that's why when we have our Saturn return, which is around 29 years old, it is the moment where, our decade of the 20s is over, and now we can say we are adults. And it's usually around that time where we start, you know, um, living a life of more like the adult life, right? So we get into more adult commitments. Like, for example, we get married, or we have children, or we start at this job that is going to be more of the kind of job that we, it's going to define our career, or we start this specific project, or we move to another place. So it requires a lot more of our commitment, and um, our decisions have to be more cautious, have to be more conscientious, have to be more mature. We can no longer be sort of playing around. It's a place to get serious. So that is Saturn. So it's not the most fun. It's not the most fun of planets. But what it does bring is mastery, okay? And it does reward us for our hard work. So now we're going to talk about um, what's been happening with Saturn in the last few years, because that's going to give us a little bit of perspective. So for the past years, Saturn has been in the sign of Aquarius. Actually, Saturn came into Aquarius back in December 2020. Okay, so as you can see, for most of the, so let's go back a little more to sort of put it into context with the pandemic, which is kind of the, the flag, the sort of that pivotal moment that we can all remember. So Saturn was in January of 2020. Saturn was, let me see, it was exactly at 22 degrees of Capricorn. Okay. And in January 2020, there was this moment that every astrologer talked about that was called the big conjunction. Sorry. So it was called the big conjunction. And that is when you have planets that are very powerful, which are usually the planets that move really slowly, coming together in the same degree of a sign. Okay. And so at that time in January 2020, we had Saturn, we had Pluto, and we had Jupiter coming all together in the sign of Capricorn at 2022 degrees. And I remember Mars was also there at some point. So, and the sun was also there at some point. So you can imagine when these planets that have such a long lasting impact because they're slow moving planets come together in the sign of structures, because Capricorn is the sign of structures, of organizations. Capricorn rules all the institutions that we know, that are set in place. For example, governments, the financial institutions, the education institutions, the, any sort of organization that helps society function the way it does, it's ruled by Capricorn. And Saturn is the planet that rules Capricorn. So when we had all these planets come together, Pluto is destruction, Jupiter is magnification, and Saturn is structures, and they all come together and it's like a big bang. It's a big collapse of the structures. So we started to see from then on, 2020 was the year of the pandemic, when the pandemic started, I should say. So from then on, we saw the beginning of the collapse of all the structures the way that we knew them. Okay, so that was Saturn then. And then in December 2020, Saturn came into the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius, traditionally, in traditional astrology, is also ruled by Saturn, but it's a very different sign. Aquarius is a sign that has to do not with the institutions and governments and things like that, but rather how we organize ourselves as collective, as the collective, the human collective, how people come together as tribes to, work towards a same purpose. And so every individual brings their own specialty, their own knowledge, their own experience, and contributes to the collective. So Aquarius is a humanitarian sign. It's all about networks and how we organize ourselves as humans, how we connect with each other, how we get together, how we fight for the same causes, how we how we organize ourselves in a more human way, right? So it's not a uh pyramidal, I don't know if you can say it, like a pyramid sort of a structure, the way that Capricorn is. It is a lateral, is horizontal sort of structure where it's a net. Okay. And so Aquarius rules internet, which is obviously one of the ways in which we connect. And uh, well, obviously, Aquarius, I mean, the internet has been existing in our lives from a long time ago. But when Saturn came into Aquarius, and Saturn being the planet of get real, organize yourself, get structures in place, you know, be more conscientious and mature about how you utilize what you have. So Saturn comes into Aquarius. We are in the middle of this pandemic where we cannot get together physically, right? We are isolated, we're separated, we cannot travel. And Saturn, that's an expression of Saturn in Aquarius, is like you cannot physically be together. So that's the limitation that Saturn puts on us. And then it says, but organize yourselves so you can still connect with each other. So if you notice during the transit that it was two years and a half of Saturn over Aquarius, um, we were able to find new ways and new structures that helped us organize ourselves in the ways that we connected to each other. So we already had all these platforms, we already had all these social media, you know, applications, whatever. But now, if you see before 2020 and now, you can see how even the educational system has transformed itself by the way that it's incorporating technology into the way that people are teaching. Like institutions are teaching now in a completely different way because of how we have integrated technology and the internet. The use of Zoom has, radically changed the working systems where you most people don't even need to go to the offices anymore. Um, you know, excuse me, activism, the way that people who organize themselves to fight for a certain cause has radically changed since Saturn entered Aquarius, in the way that, before the only way to do it was to get all people together in the streets and march and protest. And now, through the use of platforms and live videos and hashtags and things like that, people are able to actually have even more of an impact that is more, it's more global by using these technologies. And that all has happened in the last few days, few years, I mean, not days, but years. So now Saturn, which is, a very dry planet, it's a planet that it's not, um, it's not very concerned with imagination or dreams or creativity, is coming into the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is the sign of creativity, imagination, fantasy, illusions, spirituality. Pisces is a sign that does not have boundaries. It's related to the ocean, the boundless ocean. It is related to, the vast realm of the spirit that doesn't have any limits. Um, Imagination, divine inspiration, the arts, music, compassion, empathy, um, poetry, things that that could be very ethereal, very spiritual. And now we're going to see Saturn coming into that sign for the next 2.5 days. I'm sorry, I keep saying days, 2.5 years. So that's going to happen exactly on March 7th of 2023. Saturn enters the sign of Pisces and is going to stay there until March 2025. Okay. So that's a long period. Actually, it stays there even longer because it's gonna retrograde for a little bit into Aries, but then it goes back into not retrograde, sorry. It's gonna move over Aries for a month or so, and then it's gonna go back to Pisces and it's gonna stay there in Pisces until November 2025. So um so what does that mean? I think collectively we are going to see Saturn, the principle of the school, sort of making us work towards getting our shit together in regards to our spiritual um, search. The world of spirituality is going to get structured. And I feel like with Saturn getting into Pisces, we're going to see more and more. It's already happening, but it's going to be more and more uh, obvious or more mainstream. The idea that science and spirituality are getting together. We're going to see more talks about that. We're going to see more discoveries that scientific discoveries that support things that the spiritual world has been talking about for centuries. I think that there's going to be a lot of discoveries in regards to neuroscience and all of these things that really correlate with things that Hinduism and Buddhism and just every realm of spirituality has been expressing for centuries, but we haven't been able to or scientific world hasn't been interested enough in trying to validate these things, or didn't have the structures put in place to validate these things. And now they're going to be more validated, and you can see now how more and more scientists and doctors are sort of talking about the importance of meditation. Pisces is the sign of meditation, so meditation is I think is going to be introduced into the institutions as something that it's not woo-woo anymore. It's necessary, and we will see that coming into the educational systems and even offices where it's mandatory. So that it could become even more like Saturn can turn things into boring because it can turn them into part of the rules. So that's the dangerous side of having Saturn trying to create too many structures around Pisces, because then we could see that, for example, they do the great thing of trying to introduce meditation into school classes or classrooms, but then kids start associating this with something that they dislike, right? So that those are the dangers of having Saturn in Pisces. I think because Pisces also rules art and filmmaking, because it does rule the celluloid. So art, filmmaking, music, um, we we will see more of that being, more institutions coming to help artists in those regards. It could go both ways. It could also go down as, a time where art is going to be restricted in a way that there's not going to be enough financial support for artists. It's going to be a moment of sort of, um, uh, yeah, like a little bit of limited field to play and create, a more struggle for artists. That could be one of the expressions. Hopefully, we will see more of the other side, which is more and more structures helping, or organizations, institutions helping artists to create their work. So we'll see. We have to wait and see. So now, before I, you know, finish this, I would like to talk a little bit about how does that affect us personally. Okay, where is going to or whom is Saturn going to affect the most this transit? So obviously Saturn is going to be over Pisces. So all everybody who's a Pisces sun or Pisces ascendant or rising sign is going to have Saturn over, you know, over them, over their sign. So when you know somebody is Pisces, you know this person's nature and essence is one of, you know, spirituality, of connection with the other realms, of somebody who's inspired, who's naturally very compassionate, or empathic, who's, you know, very creative, for example. And so we know that with the coming transit, they are going to face the need, for whatever reason it is. Maybe it's an internal call, or is something external that is sort of forcing them to do that. But they're going to feel the need to start finding more practical ways of bringing those dreams into reality. So they are going to feel the need to start like materializing things. Say, for example, you are a Pisces and you are an artist, right? So you might be, for example, a musician, and you have many songs that you have been written for years, and you are a very inspired and talented musician, but you haven't taken the time to actually, um, you know, schedule some concerts and get together with the other musicians to record something. So these are the years, these coming 2.5 years are the years to get practical, to get organized, to get these structures in place, to bring those inspirations and fantasies and dreams to reality. And Saturn is going to make you do it. um, so, what do you do if you have Saturn over your sign? Get serious, get realistic. The more you adopt this sort of energy of like, yeah, you know, I'm I'm gonna go through a period in my life where now I have to gather everything that I've been dreaming about, and have to start finding outlets for these things to um to come into the real world, to actually be materialized. And I'm going to get serious. I'm going to look at my calendar. I'm going to put some dates. I'm going to make lists. I'm going to organize myself. I'm going to like start writing down what I want to do, and get together with people who can help me, people who are hopefully who are very practical and objective and methodical, and can help you put things into order. Okay, so that's what Saturn wants from you. If you don't adopt this mentality, this sort of attitude for the next years, you're going to feel the weight of Saturn creating pressure, right? And that can come in many different ways. It could be that, all of a sudden you feel like you're not really producing anything, but you're exhausted. It's like your days are chaotic and you feel exhausted and you don't know why. And you just feel like overwhelmed because everything is so disorganized. That could be a Saturn effect of you not taking care of your shit when Saturn is demanding you to. So the trick is get organized, get your things in place, your calendars, your schedule. Do this sort of work, and Saturn will, without a doubt, reward your hard work by the end of the transit. So for 2023, those people with the sun or ascendant, but let's talk mainly about the sun. I mean, because that's the main thing. But if you're very much into astrology and you know your chart very well, you can look into the ascendant too. But the those who have the sun between 0 degrees Pisces and I would say 10 degrees Pisces, those people are going to get affected the most. So those are the people who were born in the first days of Pisces, okay? So the first 10 days of Pisces. Those are the people who are going to get affected the most by this transit during 2023. And then the other group, the group of the following 10 days, 10, 15 days, they're going to be more affected on 2024 and so forth. Okay. So that is the story with Saturn. Now, who else is going to be affected? So those people with suns in the water signs, Scorpio and Cancer, other than Pisces, right? So Scorpio and Cancer, those people are going to be helped by Saturn because Saturn is going to be creating a trine to your signs. And that means Saturn is going to help you get organized. Saturn is going to help you. It's not so much like Saturn is going to be testing you the way that it's testing Pisces. Like right now, Saturn is going to test Pisces to see, are you up to, are you up to it? Are you doing your homework? Are you, writing your papers? Are you doing everything are you following the rules? Are you getting organized? But for Cancer and Scorpio, it's going to be more like you're going to feel the natural instinct to be more productive, to be more regulated, to take care of, your days, to be more structured. Everything that we've spoken about, it's going to come more naturally to you. Obviously, the people with the first, not obviously, but the people who were born the first days of Cancer and the first days of Scorpio are the ones that are going to be the most benefited by Saturn's transit in the year 2023. And then the following year, the following people. So, first 10 days of Cancer, first 10 days of Scorpio people are going to be more, are going to feel the benefits. They're going to naturally feel like, wow, this year I was really productive, unless something else was going on in their chart that we're not looking at right now. But, they're naturally going to feel like, wow, I got a lot of things done this year. So that's Saturn happening. Then who's going to be most, I guess, feel the contraction? Who's going to feel the contraction of Saturn the most? So those would be the people who are in mutable signs. Okay. So that's Virgo, that is Gemini, and Sagittarius. So Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius are going to feel sort of like, and hey, I don't want anybody to get scared with these things because astrology is not for people to get scared. Astrology is for people to turn on the observer and being able to get get prepared and understand, okay, I'm feeling this way. It's not like my life is all about this. Is I'm feeling this energy and I know how to work with it. Because now this energy is part of my consciousness. I understand that I don't feel a victim of the circumstances. I feel like I can assume responsibility for what's happening and I know what to do about it. So this Saturn squaring Gemini and Sagittarius for 2023 is going to be squaring the people born the first days of Gemini, the first, um, let me see. Yeah, the first 10 days of Gemini, and then people born the first 10 days of Sagittarius are going to be affected too. And so those are the people who are going to get a square from Sagittarius. And what that means is basically there is a place in your chart um, that where you're going to feel more constricted, more limited, like things are not flowing completely. There is a part of you that is going to feel like, wow, um, it's a little harder this year. Okay. Uh, but let's remember, a square is helping us to get a mastery in regards to something. So let me, for a minute, as I'm talking, I'm trying to open something here so I can look at very quickly. Thank you for your patience. Mm, sorry. Okay, here we go. No, just a minute. Okay, so I'm looking for the charts. Okay, so Gemini, for example, Gemini people um, are going to have Saturn transiting their 10th house of profession. So they're going to feel like maybe this year, professionally, everything is a little bit more uphill. Like they have to work harder to get the results that they want. Maybe they will meet certain obstacles. Okay, but the idea is that Saturn is trying to make Geminis be more committed. Geminis, as we know, have a tendency to want to do too many things at the same time, to want to like get distracted by new interests, new curiosities, new people. And Saturn is trying to make them focus. So Saturn is in their house of profession saying, hey, look at this, concentrate, focus. This is what you have to be patient, paying attention to, and this is where you have to be working harder. So if you don't do the homework, if you don't do what Saturn is demanding of you, you're gonna feel just like work is not flowing. It feels like um too crazy, too much work, or too hard, right? And but if you do what you got to do, if you respond to your Saturn calling, then you will get the benefits of that hard work, of that focus, of that commitment. So for Sagittarius, people is going to be more on the home side of things. So your physical home or your family are going to be demanding you to get more organized, more structured, more committed, more to really assume responsibility for how things are going. So you might find that your home needs a lot of repairs. You might find that all of a sudden you have to pay more for your home mortgage, or that your family needs more of your attention, things like that. But what happens, Saturn has a natural tendency Sagittarius people have a natural tendency to want to be free and not get so anchored in things, right? Like to have that freedom to move and to um, sort of take their minds out of certain concerns. And so Saturn is teaching them, it's going to be teaching them, the Sagittarius people, to, well, like you come from a place, you have a root, right? And that root could be your physical home, could be your family, your parents, your current family, whatever it is, your hometown, your country of birth, whatever it is, and you have to honor that root, those roots. You have to honor where you come from. You have to honor your base, your house. So you have to pay attention to that. You have to be responsible for making that base be stable. So Saturn's going to make you assume responsibility towards that. So what to do? You answer the Saturn call. If you don't answer the Saturn call, you would feel the weight of something, like it's going to feel uncomfortable. So the trick with Saturn is do your homework, pay attention, be committed, assume responsibility, and that's it. And then for Virgos, especially Virgos who were born the first days of Virgo, and this is going to happen in 2023, and then for the following days is going to be affecting more the 2020 in the year 2024, but 2023 is going to affect mainly Virgos from the first 10-11 days of Virgo. So go find out when Virgo starts and see if you're there within the first 10 days. Then you're going to have Saturn opposing your sun. So if Saturn is opposing your sun, it's demanding that you assume responsibility with matters around your relationships. So mainly your partners, your partner, uh, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your, whoever you're living with. Uh, if you don't have one, then Saturn is asking you why you don't have one, or do you want to have one, and why you don't, and etc. etc. It's going to ask you to look at that aspect of your life, and it's gonna demand that you assume responsibility, that you do your work to finding a middle ground that works between you and the other person, that you commit if you want to commit, that you also accept that if something is not working and it's supposed to end, accept it and let it go. All of these things that Saturn does when it's transiting in the seventh house, which is the house of relationships. So Virgos love to clean and organize and keep things minimal. So Saturn is going to ask, okay, what about this relationship? It's, it needs to be clean, needs to be cleared. What about this relationship? It's not right, and you are responsible for it. So it's assuming responsibility. So, and also, if you're not in a relationship, that's the same work you got to do. It's asking yourself, maybe about your past relationships, maybe why, what is your situation? Are you looking to have a relationship, and how can you clear the space for that person to come? Okay. Also, you can look at your business relationships. If there is one that is really important for you, that one of those business relationships that you feel like you're married to that person in a way, that's another type of relationship that you can look at with this Saturn transit. Okay, I think that's pretty much. Also, the signs. Let me see very quickly. So the earth signs, so Capricorn, Taurus, not Virgo, but Capricorn, Taurus, are going to get a sextile from Saturn this year. So those earth signs are going to be also helped, not in the same way that Scorpio and Cancer, because they're not getting a trine that is, it's a huge helper, but it's, you're going to get a few moments during this year where you might feel like, wow, either because somebody helped me or because I had the intuition to do so, I was able to be very practical, very productive, very organized during this period of my life. So those are the planets, the signs that are going to be benefited, and the ones that are going to be challenged. But as I said before, if you work with Saturn, Saturn rewards your hard work. So nothing to be afraid about. So that was Saturn, and I'll continue in another one of these with the next big transit for 2023. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.